gal checking in. We are out here beachside. I should say Shabbat Shalom to most of you out there because it is the Sabbath day in other parts of the world still, especially in the United States. You guys will still have a couple hours left of the Sabbath. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to go ahead and talk about some things in the Hebrew community that are false doctrines, that are popular false doctrines, that a lot of Hebrews fall into, if not the majority of Hebrews fall into. So I was going to talk about maybe 2 or 3, and if anybody is in the chat or wants to jump on and put a couple more on there, then we can do that. Okay, evening boss. Yeah. So a couple of them that I was going to do is the first one specifically. Shalom, bro. Let's hear it. That's what it is. All right, how you doing, brother? So a couple of false doctrines that we have that are very, very popular in the community. The first one is the identification, and we always do this one on this channel. The first one is the identity of Israel. I'm sorry, the identity of Esau as the white man. And so this is probably the most popular false doctrine in the community right now. And it's provably false. It's, definitively false. And there's a reason why we identify it as false. Because some false doctrines, it's not okay to have, but you don't want to just harp on every time someone gets it wrong in the text, because then you could look like, a know-it-all, or all these different things that, these gripes that people will have against you. But this one is particularly egregious because it's so easy to contradict. It's so easy to disprove. And it kind of makes us look like that we're not studied if we continue in a doctrine that is just provably false. Okay, so the way that it's easily proven false is, and this is what we talk about all the time. This is what the last video was talking about. So the way that it's easily proven false, and then besides what really the prophecy or the scriptures are being interpreted as, you can really go to one text and kind of destroy the doctrine, or as far as the hatred, the enmity is concerned, that is kind of hidden within the doctrine. Because the real purpose of the Edomite doctrine is to instill this level of hate in people where they can have a name to identify with the hate. And it does a lot of crazy things to you mentally because of what we're about to talk about. Deuteronomy 23:7. And I guess everybody that is familiar with the Edomite doctrine on both sides, whether you're for it or against it, will be very familiar with this verse, because it's what people are going to use automatically against the doctrine, right? It is, thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian because you were a stranger in his land. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite because he is your brother, right? So right away, you have a thou shalt not concerning Esau, right? And so you've got to really tread lightly when you deal with Esau, because right away there you have in the commandments a thou shalt not, which makes it, if you do end up hating Esau, then it makes it a sin to do so. And a lot of these camps, or a lot of these ideas within the camps, I can't just say the whole camp, but a lot of the ideas within the camps lean on people starting to hate Esau, or blaming Esau for their captivity, or using Esau as a, kind of a foil for your own righteousness. Esau is wicked, therefore I am good. And you fall down into this category of now your religion, your faith, is based on hate. Does that make sense? Or at least your joy comes from the hatred of some other group, which you are commanded not to hate, right? And we're really not supposed to hate anybody, but we are supposed to hate the wickedness, right? So we do need to really focus on what it is that we're doing when we say that we, are against Esau, or we identify Esau with somebody in our present time that we already have a gripe against. Let me read the comments real quick. It said, it's hard to say who's who. I don't touch it too much because I don't think it matters that much. Right, so that's one thing that we just went over, because some people don't think that it matters if we misidentify. And in some cases, it may not, because all these things will be revealed to us, in the end. But in order to be able to, hey, evening boss, in order to be able to correctly divide the word of truth, we need to know what it is that we're talking about. And when we look at a doctrine and we look at the identification of people in doctrines, then we can go wrong by identifying one person as somebody that is not, where it's easily proven that it's not. And then people look at the rest of your doctrine and say, if this is provably false, what else do you believe in that's provably false? So we put emphasis on identification, when it comes to the text. In the text, we are able to identify people and then ascertain their places in future society. Like the identification of Israel is of supreme importance, because Israel is prophesied to take a position in society of leadership, right? Israel is also prophesied to take a place in society of slavery. And that's how we can identify ourselves now, and then know what our role is in the future to try to attain that role through righteousness and keeping the commandments and study and living the right way, right? So identification is important in the text, because the text, tells us where these people are going to be in the future. So what it says about Esau is that Esau will be wiped out and his name will be no more. Well, we see that happen to a group of people in the first century when Jerusalem was destroyed. A lot of people think that when Jerusalem was destroyed, that Edom somehow merged with Rome. And I can kind of see how people think that. It says, that makes all the sense in the world. I agree with what you were saying 100%. Hallelujah, brother. I can kind of see how Esau, hey, evening. I can see how people would say that Esau and Rome joined, because you see there at Messiah's time that you have a rule of kings, which are called the Herodian kings, that that ruled Jerusalem and Judah at the time as co-regents with Rome. Basically, people that were put in place to rule on behalf of Rome. And so people see that and see the connection that Edom has with Rome in the Messiah's time and say, oh, okay, well, the next step is when Jerusalem falls, then Edom and Rome join and they continue that rulership. But that turns out not to be the case. And it is provably so, because we have in Josephus, where Josephus says that 20,000 Edomians, which is the remnant of the Edomites. Well, first of all, before we go to Josephus, let's touch on the Maccabean period, because the Maccabean period is important, because Yehuda Maccabeah, the one that cleansed the temple, recleansed the temple, the one that Hanukkah is made, the event that Hanukkah is made in remembrance of, Judah Maccabeah, the other thing that he did was conquer Edom. And when he conquered Edom, the Edomites were either, and there's a little bit of confusion about this, but the Edomites were either forcibly circumcised or they chose as a nation to be circumcised. And from what Josephus writes, is from that moment on, Edom identifies as Judean. And so that's pretty serious, you guys, because that's 200 years before Messiah's time. And Messiah, in the time of Messiah, by this time, you have not only Jewish people or Edomite people claiming they're Jewish in Judea, but literally living and being Jewish for 200 years already by the time of Messiah. So you have a connection between Judah and Edom in Messiah's time frame that kind of is very strong and really would be stronger than the ties to Rome among the people, because the people as one, you know, didn't like the Herodian kings, all except for the last one that died and was eaten by worms. So what happens then in 70 AD when Jerusalem falls, you have a group of 20,000 Idumeans who join the ranks of the Zealots. And I know we've talked about this before, but if you know who the Zealots are, they're the most like zealous people of Israel who carried daggers and who would fight secretly to establish Jerusalem against the Romans for Judean independence. And so they were known to attack other Hebrews, other Jewish people, because they were working with Rome, like tax collectors. That's why it was such a big deal for Simon the Zealot and Matthew the tax collector to both be in the group with Messiah, because they were naturally like blood enemies. Like the Zealot would be after the tax collector. So with all that being said, the Idumeans send a group of 20,000 of their men to join the ranks of the Zealots, not the regular army, the Zealots. And this is, in fact, Edom was known to be zealous for Israel, for Judah, because of their, you know, historical, biblical, I guess you would call it, enmity to Judah in the past, to Israel in the past. They were already known as the enemy of Israel, you know, from then being in the wilderness when they wouldn't let them pass to their land, right? So since then, they've been the enemy of Israel. And now that they're joined to Judah, they have more of a point to prove. Therefore, they're going over, you know, they're overdoing it to let you know how Jewish they are. This is what literally the history books say about the end of Edom, that they joined zealously to Judah, so much so that they joined the ranks of the most zealous group, the Zealots, right? And so at the end, when the temple fell, the Israelites went into captivity and the Edomites went into captivity, and they went into captivity together. You don't even hear about any Herodian kings after 70 AD. This is when the Herodian kings stop as well. So all of the Edomites go into captivity with Judah, joining them in their ranks, joining them in their families, and then cease to exist as a people, joined in with Judah. So again, some of us out here now, if you understand what I'm saying, right now, Edom is literally your brother. Some of us out here now are descendants of Edomites and not Israelites, because at this time, the two were joined. Do you see what I'm saying? In the time of the Messiah. So it's provably so that Esau is not the white man. Regardless of that, the odds of there being this black and white twin, when white skin is a characteristic not of any Shemitic tribes, but of the Hamitic, not the Hamitic, but the Japhethite tribes that were in the north and in the northeast, who we know, who history says is Magog, right? That's what all of history says, is that the people that were white-skinned, blonde-haired, blue eyes were the Scythian tribes in the very far north that identified with Magog, according to Josephus. We know this for a fact. So history tells us that this Edomite doctrine is false. The Bible tells us that the Edomite doctrine is false. And it is actually also a sin because of Deuteronomy 23:7. So all of these things come into play when we adopt this doctrine that is provably false, and then when we preach this doctrine along with all the other stuff, all the true stuff, but this one with it, then we undermine our ability to win souls, right? And so that's the important part. So we do have, like we just said, an identification of the white man in prophecy, and he is Magog. And Magog plays a very, very, very big role at the end of the world. In fact, after Israel is delivered from the nations, Magog gathers itself twice to battle Israel. Once before, and that's when Yahweh comes down and destroys them with fire and brimstone, and the world knows who Israel is, and Israel knows who Israel is for sure. And then again after the 1,000 years, when the devil is loosed and Gog and Magog are regathered for the final battle, which ends in a similar way, right? And so we can tell 2 times in the text that Gog and Magog comes against Israel, and they're both in far future times. So understanding that this is the group of people that in the future will one day do this thing to us is important, because if you believe that they're Esau, you don't know that they're going to one day do this thing to us, and you don't know how to approach a situation. You don't even know how to tell the people of Gog and Magog today that they in the future will one day do this thing, and therefore have them watch out so that they're not following down this path towards something that may end up being the very thing that scripture talks about, right? Having the the Edomite doctrine could keep you from saving one of the Magogites that would be destined to come against your people in the future. Does that make sense? So let me see what else is in the comments here. It says that, okay, no more new comments. But yeah, if that makes sense to you guys, we can move on to the next one. And I've just got these 2, but if anybody in the chat can bring up some other ones, we can talk about them as well. The next one I want to deal with is really kind of, for me, silly, but so many believe it. So many people believe in it that it has to be at least discussed. And that's the Lashawan Kadash, right? This is a big one for me because the Hebrew is important to understand. We call ourselves Hebrews, and we, some of us, we boast in our understanding, right? We should boast in Yah and how we worship and how strong our faith is by example, right? But if we can't also do the scholarship that's behind it, then we again undermine our stance, right? And so adhering to this Lashawan Kadash undermines our point when we say to somebody Shalom, and in the text it clearly says Shalom. Okay, and so we can show you in the text where it says Shalom. So, and I didn't prepare for this. I probably should have prepared for this. But I believe it's in Hebrews chapter 7. And it is talking about Melchizedek. And it says the king of Salem, which interpreted is peace, right? And so we know from the Greek, or from the Hebrew, that shalom means means peace. But in the Greek, they're spelling it out. They're transliterating the word literally in Hebrews 7 or Hebrews 8 or wherever it is. They're doing the best they can to, in Greek letters, spell the Hebrew word how it's pronounced. And so since the Greeks don't have an SH, a sh sound in their alphabet, then they have to replace it with that S sound, which is very close. The S, because even the Benjamites couldn't know the difference between shibboleth and sibboleth, right? So they used that letter, and I can't remember what Greek letter it was, to transliterate the word, and it sounded like salam, right? Or salom. And so we know right there from the text in the New Testament, in the book of Hebrews, from the Greek transliteration, what the Hebrew sounded like 2,000 years ago. Right there in the text. No W, no additional syllable with the vowel that's in that place. Do you see what I'm saying? nothing to indicate that is ever pronounced with an additional syllable as a consonant. People have yet to understand that in Hebrew, you have letters that can be more than one thing. It can be a vowel or it can be a consonant, depending on where it's put in the word, right? And so you have to understand that's a whole different concept to what we have in the English language. Well, we do. We have some vowels that can act like consonants, but we have this in our mind. There's got to be one way or the other. And so what Lashawan Kadash does is it makes them all consonants except for, these specific instances when they're not, right? And so we know by the text that that's incorrect. That saying shalom is an incorrect pronunciation of the Hebrew. So if we present our hope for salvation to somebody that doesn't have it, but is educated outside of the religion, like educated in the text but not in the religion, and we say shalom to this person, automatically they're going to think of us as uneducated. And so the thing about it is, I believe that these doctrines are all like together. You see what I'm saying? Like they all come in a package deal. Like the people that believe in the Edomite doctrine also believe in this wild style of Hebrew. Do you see what I'm saying? So what it tells me that these two things come together and they're both provably false with someone that knows just a bit of history or is doing a half a bit of scholarship, that tells me that they're designed, right? That tells me that these false doctrines are designed and are like weapons that are used and like waiting for us in the community to come in and apply them to our, understanding. You see what I'm saying? These would be like psychological weapons that were waiting on us to find them out, infect us, and then now we're spewing out this, wild Hebrew and this wild doctrine together. Does that make sense? So that when we get to the truth, we have these pitfalls that are already there waiting for us. Because I don't know if you guys know this or have been around for a long, long time. And I believe that's my brother right here, Daliao. So shalom, brother, if that's you there. But these doctrines, I believe, are becoming more and more popular. Maybe it's just more people are in the truth now. There's a lot of people waking up to what's going on, but they're becoming more popular, more widespread, and I'm starting to see them a lot, right? Like a person came up to me and said that, or commented on one of my videos and said, "You're the only person that I've ever seen say that white people weren't Edom." And that blew my mind, because that means that the false doctrine is more prevalent than the actual, the false doctrine is more prevalent than the actual doctrine. And that's wild to me. And so, and I'm seeing more and more shalom and all of this too. And that, it bothers me, because it doesn't take a lot of scholarship to find these things out. And and I know that there are these pitfalls that are created for us to fall into, really, by our oppressors, by the Ashkenazim, by the people that took our identity. Because who does it hide? So if you're calling, because I always say this, but if you come into the truth that you are Israel, that means the person that's claiming to be Israel is not Israel. So in a lot of cases, what they'll do, people that are into this espionage and sabotage and all these things, they'll make this plan B. They'll make the escape route, right? So the escape route here is in the doctrine is, okay, if I'm not Israel, right? And this is me speaking as a Gentile, me speaking as someone who's from Ashkenaz, right? If I'm not Israel, the next best thing that I could be is Israel's twin brother, right? So if they find out that I'm not Israel, I can't tell them I'm Magog, right? Because there's prophecies about Magog, what Magog is going to do. Can't let them stumble in that direction and find out who I really am. I've got to tell them something else. I've got to keep them from knowing who I actually am once they start looking for who I actually am, right? And so who could I be that would be almost as good as being who I pretended to be for so long, right? So the next best thing is his brother Esau, right? Okay, so we'll design a doctrine around us being Esau. This is me speaking as a Gentile. We'll design a doctrine around that so they don't go looking for this other prophecy, or they don't go looking too deep into history and find Josephus, and Josephus identify the Scythians as the Magogites, and then you look up the Scythians and find out that they were blue-eyed, white-skinned, and blonde-haired, and existed in the far north, and were the barbarian hordes that took over all of Europe from the 5th century BC to the 6th century AD, and who now, since then, have conquered the world and shaped the image of how we perceive history around themselves, right? You don't want them to find that out. So you got to say somebody else with this other line who's close to you, who's close to Israel, and who there is already a design, doctrine, and history around. That would be the thing that you would do if you were trying to keep people to figure out who you are, right? So that's why this doctrine must have been designed by those people, and not something that arose naturally in, weak scholarship, right? This is a thing that was designed. It's a spell. It's a mind virus, or whatever you want to call it. But what it turns out to be is a snare, right? Is a stumbling stone, is a pitfall for us to fall into. And so these two are my real pet peeves, that I hate when my brothers and sisters fall into them. But of course, it is what it is. You don't want to sound snobbish, or you don't want to sound like overly academic or any of those things. So we approach these topics sometimes with kid gloves, but I recommend everybody go out and actually do the scholarship into what Hebrew sounds like. Do the scholarship into who Esau is, the history of Esau, the prophecies of Esau. Do the research as to who are the major players in the end of the world, besides what you hear in Second Esdras. Don't hear one scripture and say, oh, there it is. Because we already know when it says Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of the one to come. You want to look up every time you see the word world in the text, because world doesn't mean the globe. We know that. World doesn't mean earth either. What it means is era, moment of time, generation. In more instances than not, whenever you see the word world, it means era. It means span of time. You want to check Hebrews chapter 1, verse 2, where it says that Messiah is the one who created the worlds, plural, because they're using that term. I believe it's the term epoch or eon. I don't think it's cosmos. It may be cosmos, but it represents an entire span of time. So as you can see, with Edom being in control of Jerusalem at the time of Messiah, and then disappearing after the time of Messiah, and then Messiah going on to make Israel a household name, who is Jacob, the time of Jacob begins with Messiah, right? This is when the world knows who Jacob is. Before that, the world could care less about who Jacob is. Now he's one of the most important people in history, right? So the time of Jacob begins with Messiah, and the time of Edom or Esau also ends with Messiah, because Edom joins in with Judah and is never heard from by name again. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you guys, that's all I really got. Let's see, definitely created a camp language that have people sounding crazy. I'm telling you, and it's so easy to prove it false that it makes us look like we don't do the scholarship, and then it diminishes the ability to preach to other people. Do you see what I'm saying? So what about your guys? Don't your guys say shalom? Don't you guys say a higher or these other things that people say? Yeah, they do. Okay, well then, if you're the same group with them, how do I know that your scholarship is good? Well, you don't. You don't, because so many of my brothers and sisters are doing half scholarship. So that's what I invite people to do is, go out and see if these things be so before you adopt them into your personal catalog of religious belief, right? Go out and double check and do the research, the appropriate research, of course in prayer, and of course with the right mind in place, so that you don't find yourself victim to some of these pitfalls, some of these stumbling stones that can really damage our reputation in the world, right? So really, that's all I got. I wanted to make sure that I came on here today to talk about these things, because sometimes, just seeing them online and seeing them being so widespread, it makes me think, dang, man. And it kind of gets me in a certain mood to get riled up, but to be down a little bit, because like, okay, come on, people, you can do better than this. But being able to talk about it and kind of air things out helps that. It helps with the frustration, to be honest with you. So if that's it, if nobody has any more questions, I see there's 2 people on here. Shalom, shalom, everybody. I hope that it was edifying for you. If you have any questions or any other false doctrines or any, doctrines that you want to discuss, then now's the time in the chat. Yeah, we're just out here on the beach. I'm waiting for my fish to get done. So I'm out here on the beach right by the slave castle. This is a nice little spot. It looks much better in the daytime. Right now it's nighttime, so you really can't see how beautiful it is out here. But yeah, we out here just waiting on this fish to get cooked up. But if nobody has any more questions, I see somebody else has come on here. Shalom, shalom. I was actually getting ready to take off, but what we were talking about, if you've seen the title and want to make sure that it's on the up and up, we were talking about the dominance of false doctrines in the community. 2 in particular, the doctrine of Lashawan Kadash, with the Hebrew that is invented, really, and I believe it came out of One West. I'm not sure where it emerged from, but it definitely is prevalent in the Hebrew community, and it's provably false, like people saying shalom and all that. Again, we don't want to disrespect anybody that believes in this now, but we just encourage additional research so that we as a community can be on one accord, and not one accord in falsehood, but one accord in truth, right? And so we just invite everybody to continue to research. And then the other one was the Edomite doctrine, which we talk about a lot on this channel, about Esau being the white man, which again is provably false, because we know who the white man is. The white man is Magog, right? And not only that, there are scriptures that preach against hating Esau. And again, we're not supposed to hate anybody. Our doctrine is to call people out of the Gentiles, out of the Gentile mentality, whether they be Gentiles or not, so that they can join the family, so that we can save souls, so that we can present ourselves blameless before Elohim, right? It is hard to win a soul, right? So we want to do it with the most truth that we possibly can. We can't use any end arounds. We got to make sure that we're doing it in the correct way. And having this false identification really undermines our message. So those are the things that we were talking about here. Let's see. It says, are you on IG? Are you on IG, bro? I'm not on Instagram because I don't know how to use Instagram. I know that's really the platform that most people use, that most our people use. So I know that's some place that I do need to be in order to get out some of these doctrines and some of the information that we have. But I really don't know anything about the platform, but I will do my research on it and see what I have to do to get started. Another friend of mine said that I needed to be on Instagram because that's where our people are. So I have to figure out how to work that system and do that, because I know you can get on live on Instagram too. So a lot of times I would probably be there so that I could get a big audience. Do you see what I'm saying? And especially an audience of our people. And then I do like to talk about controversial topics. So I'm sure, you know, with that, it will draw in a lot of people to see, okay, well, he's challenging these doctrines, and these are doctrines that we see as fundamental. So let's see what he has to say. And again, not like clickbait or anything like that, but definitely in truth and with a good spirit, so that we're not, you know, trying to cause contention. But yeah, I do need to go ahead and get on Instagram. It says, I want to send you a message. How can I contact you? So you can reach out to my email, and I've got a couple different emails, or you could just hit me up too. If you can give me your email, or maybe you can put the email in the chat, then I can reach back out to you. However you want to do it, I can give you my email. I've got a couple different ones. I don't want to use my main one, and then I have a work one, and there's a couple ones I don't want to use, but I can give you my email. I got an email that you can use here. I can put it in the, can I put it in the chat? I don't know if I can chat in my own chat. I don't think I can chat in my own chat. This is not Zoom. But if you put your email in the chat, I'll definitely reach out to you, or I could tell it to you either way, so you can reach out to me. I have a alias email, but it's kind of, let's see, WhatsApp. Yeah, I'm on WhatsApp as Yerid Yahoo. So if you look up Yerid Yahoo, you'll find me. Yerid Yahoo Yisrael on WhatsApp. You'll find me. Yep. And so there's a couple other people that joined in. Shalom, shalom. Look like they dropped out. But sometimes it doesn't show you. I don't know if it always shows you who's on or who's off, or if it goes back and forth. Yeah, I'm on WhatsApp, but if it goes back and forth. So if anybody's just now joining, then the false doctrines that we were talking about that were in the that are in the community, that have to really be addressed, that are provably false, is the Edomite doctrine and the Lashawan Kadash doctrine, where you use shalom and words like that instead of shalom, where you insert every letter as a consonant instead of knowing where the vowels that can be both, or the consonants that can be both, are, and how they are used, especially since the name of Yah has has three of those letters, has 3 letters in it, and all 3 of those letters are letters that are used as both vowels and consonants. So that does throw a real monkey wrench on your interpretation of the name of the Father, which is very important too, which is absolutely important. And of course, on this channel, we used it. It said, it's okay, just hit me up when you get time, bro. Okay, is this Dollar Yahoo? Is this Dollar Yahoo? Because if it's Dollar Yahoo, then yeah, I can hit you up. I'll reach out to you on your page. But yeah, so the letters that the Father's name are expressed with are all consonants and vowels. So it really makes it difficult to interpret what the name is without knowing a little bit of history behind it, and without having, you know, direction. Do you see what I'm saying? And we don't have to necessarily go into that tonight. You know, I've already done a lot of videos on the name of the Father, and people know that I use Yah-O. I came from using Yahuwah, and now we changed over to Yah-O. But you can look at I have a video unlocking the code on that one. I have another one, Yah-O discussed in a live, and I also have one in a old live. It's called Yahoo is the only thing that it could be. And we just, came across this information probably about 2 years ago. And it was so strong that we decided to change. So that's not something that I am necessarily as dogmatic about as I am the other two topics, because those two topics are very easy to interpret. Do you see what I'm saying? These doctrines, the Edomite doctrine, is easy to interpret it as false. And the Lashawan Kadash doctrine is very simple to render false if you just do the appropriate research. So I am more dogmatic about those. But about the Father's name, I'm not so much, because it's not an easy thing to interpret. And, it's been largely misinterpreted throughout history. But with the appropriate research and with time and unification, I do believe we'll all come to a consensus. And I believe it'll be the right consensus. So, of course, this is Daliyahu. So what I can do is, after I get off of here, I can just click your page, and then I can just leave my contact info on a video, and I'm sure you'll get it through your notifications. But all right, you guys, I gotta go grab my fish. I know that's probably ready by now. Shalom, you guys. We'll go ahead and every time I say I'm getting off of here, somebody else jumps on. But we'll go ahead and close it down. Peace and blessings to all of you guys. Peace, blessings, and favor. Shalom, shalom. Okay. Yes, sir. I'll hit you up, Daliyahu. Shalom, shalom.